Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MedLegal Professors Masterclass. Today is Monday, August 4th, 2025, and we are going to do a lot of heavy lifting today. So take notes, ask questions, and as always, email me afterwards if you have any questions and I can help you with it. I'd be more than happy to do so. Govern before you automate. That is the theme of everything we do at the MedLegal Professor, because as professionals, as part of regulated industries, if we do not govern, we shouldn't be using AI, and we need to be part of that entire process of governance. Important, I'm not here to teach you about AI. This is not a tech class. If you want to learn about AI, you need to take another class or another webinar. I'm here to talk about end-to-end governance for regulated industries and licensed professionals who need to govern not just for themselves, their peace of mind, but also because they have to answer to boards and regulators, and above all, those who they serve. So we are going to jump in with our regular announcements at the beginning, and then we'll jump into the topics. I'm sorry about this. This is going a little nuts. Anyways, I'm Nikki and I've been busy doing a lot of stuff the last few years. And if you want to read up more about me, it's all on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about any of that also. Founding allies. It is important for you to know that the work I'm doing is not just supported, but really governed by other people who are telling me what they need in the industry. I need you to kind of keep this in mind. When I left the bench and left the practice of law to do more, more wasn't AI governance. More was being a subject matter expert with different innovators and AI companies. And that has turned into being what I'm doing now, because all the questions are coming to us about AI governance, about defensibility, about being ready for litigation. And those you see on the screen right now have been with us from almost day one, and we are very appreciative of these founding allies. And it's important that you know that we're not funded by an organization. We're doing this to make sure that you guys are ready to govern and involved in the governance process. So this month, August, is AI HI month. Those of you who are new to the webinar, please know that nothing that we do in a licensed setting or in a regulated setting can be without AI plus HI, and of course, artificial intelligence plus human intelligence. And this month is August, and we are finalizing our founding allies. So if you are an organization, a company, an educational institution that are behind what we are preaching, please send us an email saying that you'd like to be one of our founding allies, and we'll send you more information about it. But it's important that everything we do is that the AI is not leading us. The HI, the human intelligence, must be leading the AI. And right now, based on the consultations and the meetings I'm having with a lot of industry leaders, there's not a lot of HI leading, and there's AI being used. So we're trying to get people to understand that we as licensed professionals or regulated industries are different than others who are just using AI, because we have higher authority to answer to, and it's important to keep that in mind. Monthly insurance reminder. If you take nothing away from this session today, please go and check your malpractice insurance policy and any other insurance policy that you may have, and make sure you understand what it does and doesn't cover for AI use. And this is not as simple just reading the policy. I would recommend calling your malpractice insurance carrier or calling your insurance agent and asking a lot of questions. What is covered? What is not covered? When do we get into trouble? What do we have to have? Everything. Bottom line, don't do anything that makes the insurance basically deny claim coverage. And that is the most important thing when it comes to at least malpractice. And I want to make sure that you understand we're not doing governance for the sake of just one to make sure that it's running smoothly. AI governance in our world is about legal defensibility, making sure the human is making the decision and the judgment, and making sure that we truly serve the ones we are serving or are supposed to be serving. For the last few months in my presentations and in my consultations, I've been using the term AI is tech on steroids. And in order to make it a little more involved with the metaphoric analysis, we've now switched to a beautiful gold Ferrari. And that is exactly what I would say to most people who are starting the AI governance process. We've been used to tech. We've done we had the internet, we've had other tech that's come into our lives, MRIs, CTs, anything like that. But this is not the tech we're used to. This is not the tech that you've governed. And I would really sincerely want you to consider it in the back of your head that AI is a dangerous machine and that you need to govern it differently as such. And it's important that we govern it in a way that you understand AI moves faster, does a lot more than you are seeing. And just don't be fooled by, oh, I don't see this or I don't see that. That's the whole concept. And we can't drive a Ferrari that we're not used to, and it's a dangerous machine, and not consider insurance, not consider how to drive it, where the brake is, where all the accoutrements are in order for us to be able to govern it. So please, don't just get in behind the car and start driving. You really need to know what it is about and how you should govern it. The entire concept and campaign that we are preaching to the world is govern before you automate. And that concept is basically wanting you to really, really pause and think about how you have to prove so many other things to bar associations, medical boards, insurance companies. We have to prove continuing legal education. We have to prove whether we have a trust account, whether we have our prescription protocol. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to AI use, you have to stop and say, how will I show that all my professional duties and obligations are met? So, and I say this in that just like the AI is on steroids, is tech on steroids, the liability, the responsibility, and the work that goes into it to start utilizing AI is also very much, you need to keep that in mind and be able to implement it in a way that you realize that you're not just trying to protect yourself and your license, but that there are a lot of regulations and obligations that you must meet in an outside world. Again, how did this come about? This concept of me being an accidental AI governance person, it came about because as a subject matter expert, I was helping AI innovators and different software companies be able to integrate AI into their governance, into their technology, and be able to pinpoint where the AI and HI connect, where when there's AI that's not so obvious, it's in the background. But the AI reality is that we are using it to write, to decide, it predicts for us, it drafts for us, and a lot is happening, especially behind the scenes that you don't see, because the vendor has said to you, the AI vendor has said to you, oh, this is safe, and you're using it. That's not the line we need to meet. Just because the vendor said it's safe, it's not where we have to what we have to comply with. Remember that if something goes wrong, liability is on us, liability is on our organizations, and we have to make sure that we put up the guardrails as soon as possible. We know what's coming. Whether we are in law, medicine, dentistry, engineering, education, wherever we are right now, just Google it or ChatGPT it and look up the evolving professional standards for AI oversight. Every group, every organization has some initial memo that they have issued about your professional responsibilities. This is not us just telling you about your professional responsibilities. This is us showing you how to meet your professional responsibilities when it comes to AI governance. And it's important for you to remember, you can wait and react and establish governance when it's absolutely necessary, but you will see that kind of reactive governance you will not be prepared for lawsuits, for board inquiries, for client questions. So you won't be ready. And if you're using AI and you're in a regulated industry or a licensed professional, you cannot wait and do reactive governance. If you're using it, if you've brought that dangerous machine into your world, you need to have proactive AI governance, and that is so important. And something that has been said to me a lot these past few months is that concept of everything you're talking about is so burdensome, and we have to do this and we have to do that. And I say to everyone, governance is not a burden, it's an opportunity. Because if you can make those you serve trust you, if you can build a relationship with the AI and the way you utilize it for your patients, clients, it's important that you use it as an opportunity. And we'll walk through about how this can be an opportunity and an ROI that you need to invest in. So the previous slide, we talked about the fact that we know what's coming, and I'm trying to put all of these different policies and protocols into one framework so everyone can understand. You have to know how AI is not only involved in your organization, but how it affects your workflow, how it could be anywhere in the background. It could be you don't even know that it's there because you're using just Google and doing a search, and Gemini is giving you a response. So it's important that you understand that we have to do governance for us as licensed professionals or regulated industries as in a way that not only meets our professional standards, but our rights and duties of not just ourselves, but the people we serve. And of course, we need to prepare our leaders. And this is how we've come kind of full circle. When this came all about, because I kept getting question after question from judges, from attorneys, from doctors, practice leaders, asking, well, how do we govern? And that's the whole concept, is that we need to look at it in a much different way than we have. But think about it in this way. You need to, just the same way that you have your patient management and your client management, AI now becomes part of that management process that you have to govern. And this is the most important thing that I'm going to say to you. I am an AI champion. I'm not saying that we shouldn't use it. I think a lot of people are ashamed to say they use it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I think, in fact, if you are not using AI, you are that doctor who's refusing to utilize an MRI, or a lawyer who's not doing legal research through Westlaw. It is important that you don't put a negative feeling towards using AI, or presenting it in a way that like there's something you're doing wrong. No, you be proud of the fact that you are governing and utilizing AI in a way that is beneficial to those who you serve. So I put this slide in here because I just want to let you know these are just some of the questions I need to answer with a basic assessment with a client. And it's a lot. And I've put this slide, and you'll get a copy of the presentation, so you'll have it. But it's a lot of boundaries and different roles and different audit trails and documentation. So it's different than what we're used to in some ways, but it's the same old, same old. We've always had to document. We've always had record-keeping requirements. We've always had what we've needed to do in order to have information and documentation for preventing future harm or defending malpractice. So it's important that you realize there's a lot we will be discussing and going through. Governing is not just saying, okay, I have a tool, and I have this one tool, and I'm going to figure out how it works and bring it into our system. It's not about that. It's a much more macro and micro level governance system. And I'm going to talk to you about both of them today, about the macro governance and the micro governance. But we're trying to prevent and protect everyone from unnecessary risk. And that means the patients, the clients, and ourselves. So we have to keep in mind that there's a lot happening all at once when it comes to AI. We're just trying to learn the technology. Now we have to figure out how to govern the technology. So permission to operate AI safely. That's the best way I can say to you what governance means, because if you don't govern, you don't have permission to use AI in a professional setting. It's that simple. Because if the AI enters the organization, it can affect so many things in your system. And some people say, oh, well, we're just got ChatGPT, or we are just using Gemini. We're going to show you how each of those things can affect your bottom line as a leader and what you need to do to protect even just ChatGPT. So I started talking to you about proactive AI governance. And I personally think it's holistic proactive AI governance. We as professionals have a lot on our plates. We already have a lot that we need to do. And we shouldn't have to keep adding things to our to-do lists to worry about. And when I say holistic, is that if you have peace of mind, if you're aware, okay, I've done what I needed to do for liability purposes, for insurance purposes, for regulators purposes, then you have that peace of mind that you don't have to constantly be going, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. And I don't want that and I have had many sleepless nights about it. I don't want us to continue being able to want to use AI and then worry about it in a constant way. So the first thing that we're going to want to get in your leadership mind for governance is you have to establish some kind of governance file. You have to establish some protocol within your organization. And what I'm talking about today, this is very important. Whether you are a sole practitioner, whether you're a large hospital, whether you're a multi-office medical practice, regardless of who you are and what you do, this system that we're talking about for governance can be applied in a one-person setting or in a large setting. And why it's important is that when we talk about the different roles that you have that are involved in governance, keep in mind that if you're a sole practitioner, you're all of those roles. And it's important that you still know that even if you're a sole practitioner, you still need to govern. Or if you're a huge organization, you still need to govern. Because the bottom line is we answer to judges, to boards, to insurance companies, and we need to make sure that we have a governance file and system set up. For your governance file, there's a lot that needs to be, you need to do your homework. You can't just say, okay, we're going to jump into this and without a plan. You can't not know the terminology, not know the types of tools you need, not know the documents you need to prepare. So you need to be literally engaged and involved in creating not just the governance system, but also a way of documenting all of it. Because you're trying to basically show to anyone and everyone that you are reasonably controlling the use of AI and that you're able to show that you reasonably govern. And so again, when we're talking about all of this, it's a little overwhelming. It's a heavy lift, but it's a lift that one person can do it or a whole committee can do it, but it needs to be done. And this slide, I just want to make sure that we talk about the fact that think about all of these different things that you have to do about review logs, testing records, audit history. This is not just me making a list and saying, oh, okay, this may be necessary. We've been doing this. This is how we've been doing technology in our lives with other technology we've had. We still have to answer to regulators about everything that is a part of the care of our patient or our client. So it's important that you know that not only do you have to govern, but you have to learn the terminology. You have to understand AI in order to know where and when judgment is involved and how we get the AI HI component meshing with each other. So if you don't start with a governance file and you don't start that concept of I want to start a trail, I want to know what happens if something goes wrong, who's signing their name under this AI decision, you're actually looking at your system and your workflows and trying to figure out how we're going to manage all of this. So you need to look at it in a way that not only are you needing to govern the actual workflow, but actual implementation of the governance system. So we're going to talk about lots of planning and lots of documentation. And unfortunately, what happens if something goes wrong, and how do we do crisis management? Because it's coming and we need to be ready for it. I want to make sure you understand. I hear this all the time. I trust my staff. I monitor their way they're using it. We have a few policies. Governance is not for the legal defensibility purposes, for regulators, for documentation, for your peace of mind. Is not just having piecemeal governance. You have to literally have a system that says, we've gotten everyone educated, we've gotten everyone signed off, everyone understands what our policies are, everyone understands what they can and can't do, everyone understands what could go wrong, and if it went wrong, how do they see it? So you literally have to put the entire governance system into place in order to make sure that you are able to govern. And you can't just say, oh, I trust everyone. It's not going to work. You need to be able to have full system. So if AI is permitted, what do we need to do? Do not say, this is not my problem. This is IT's problem. I have heard this so many times. It is not IT's problem. It's the leadership. The leadership has to take AI governance and be able to control it, establish it, determine it, and figure out what's best for whether it's an individual practice or a large organization. But you need to know where, how, when, how this AI is coming into your organization and how it's affecting the outcome of your cases or your patient files. So if you are already using AI and don't have governance already established policy, you're already not complying with governance. And it's important for you to understand, yes, we are proactively starting this process and you need to be ready for it. And if you're bringing it in, even if it's one tool, you need to govern it so that if a year from now, a patient asks you, how did this come about? You need to be able to answer it. This past weekend, I spent some time on LinkedIn answering questions about this one issue, disclosure. And we're going to get into that. We're going to have an entire webinar on disclosure requirements. But I want you to know that, again, our requirements are not just to meet the legal standards for HIPAA or legal standards, what our state requires for disclosure. We as professionals have responsibilities to the people that we are answering to from our organization, ABA, AMA, ADA. So you have to remember that as such, we need to govern in a way that we are not just complying with the law, but are complying with our standards as professionals. This is the fun part, and I need to make sure everyone understands. There's a lot that we're talking about, but governance can be on a macro level, which is the organizational level, meaning that everyone is compliant, all the tools have been audited, everything is the way it should be, the file system for the entire organization is set up. Then you'll see, which is the nitty-gritty, you'll see that there's a micro level governance where you actually have to map the workflow and figure out where we need to document and what we need to do in order for AI decisions to be properly documented. And we're going to, again, get into that in the next few sessions, but I just want to make sure that you remember you have a role on a macro level and a role on a micro level. AI entry into the control system. You need to know that we're not talking about technology that's coming. It's already all over the place, but you need to establish formal process. And how do you establish a formal process? You have to have pre-deployment intake. Deployment means that you've gotten the AI, you've done all your checkboxes, and you're about to launch the AI product. But you need to know, before you actually implement an AI tool, you need to know what it is, who it touches, what data is at issue, is there privacy issues, is there disclosure issues, where in the process does this come in? Can someone just refuse to follow the AI's decision? There's a lot that's happening before you even bring the AI, and there are a lot of checklists and a lot of forms, but I'm just letting you know that governance is going to be about doing all of this over and over again at the beginning to make sure each tool is ready to be deployed in your system. Responsible authority. Every organization, every practice has to have someone who is responsible for AI governance. As I said before, it could be just you yourself, or it could be a whole committee. But there still needs to be one person responsible who basically is held accountable for the system. And you need to be ready to be able to point that out. Insurance companies are asking for it. So be aware that it's not just us creating, oh, you need to give someone a title. No, you need to be able to fill out lots of forms about AI use, and it's important that you do that. As part of this governance process, the other important part is if the AI tool is either quietly coming into the world, into your organization, and you don't know about it, or some small department chose to bring something in and you don't know about it, that's why the AI governance lead is so, it's so important that they set standards for everyone. And this is the one that we can't get through a webinar without me using this term, so I'm going to do it. You can't willy-nilly bring AI into the system. It has to go through the AI governance leader, and it has to be brought in based on the policies that the office or the hospital has set. So it's very important that you keep that in mind. You're going to need to map not only the users and the roles they have, but their decisions and where they're involved in the process. And I'm going to tell you this. When I started working last year on the EAMS modernization for the state of California, lots of roles and lots of mapping was done in order for us to determine how we can go forward with the technology. And same thing with AI governance. Before you even go forward with the policy, you need to know all the people involved. But this, you've already probably, for larger organizations, you've already done this. For other policies, you have the information to utilize, so it's easier to be able to analyze and create your boundaries. It's important that you understand and that your staff and every employee understands what is allowed, what's not allowed, what's off limits, what's who's allowed to do this and who's not allowed to do that. Because if the AI is making decisions and the decision is about a care or about litigation strategy, it can only be the licensed professional who's making final decisions. We don't stop being doctors and lawyers or engineers. We still have to comply with our standards, where I can't practice law if I'm not an attorney. Same way, you can't just use the AI. So you need to teach your people the limitations and be able to make sure that they understand that they're restricted. Preventing misuse. So not only do we have to make sure that it's brought into our system properly, we need to make sure that everyone in the system understands what are the no-nos. This one is the hardest one. Not only do people not know where the AI is, they don't know how to prevent the misuse. So you need to make sure that departments within have leaders, just like a fire drill where we have different departments and different leads. You need to make sure that once you've established a boundary map, that you see where you can prevent misuse. And we'll get into a checklist of that also. Now, who's allowed to use the AI in this department, for what and under what conditions? This is the question that I ask almost every leader I'm working with, and they look at me with complete deer with headlights. And if you can't answer this question, this is your number one governance question that you have to be able to always answer. Does your staff, do your employees know what they can and can't do? It's crucial, because otherwise you're not governing. Okay, this is another good one that we need to bring into our world. AI risk stratification. What does that mean, and why do we need to know it? It's that not all AI use is the same. We can have a AI tool that's it's a low risk tool where it just edits grammar or formats documents or creates a gamma presentation. Or it could be something that's the moderate risk levels, where it summarizes notes, so generates drafts of different things. But it's important that you always stop yourself and say, is a professional making a decision based on this AI information? And if it's making the decisions that affect people's welfare, their money, their health, if there's an outcome related to that professional opinion, then that's a high risk level, and you need to document that, and you have to govern that completely different than the moderate and the lower levels, because the top one is where we will most likely get into trouble the most, and we need to have systems for that. And remember, when I say low versus high risk, there's a difference between having to have passive logs that, yes, you've checked off on this AI tool and you've set a system in place, versus a high risk where you have to have full chain of custody. Again, remember, if there's a malpractice, if there's a board inquiry, if there's a regulator coming forth, we rely on evidence. We have to prove evidence. And in order to do that, you have to have full chain of custody, you have to have human validation, and you have to have a mechanism of escalating an issue. And that in itself is part of the governance, again, where not only are you putting the policies, but you're showing that people can come to you with issues and problems. Now, every AI interaction must be visible across 4 layers. What does that mean? It means that we can't just start using AI without knowing who initiated it, what was asked, what it produced, and what the human did with the output. These 4 layers are extremely important for the concept of making sure that you do not, if it's a high risk, you have to document this in every way. So again, if the risk is high, the documentation requirements are higher. If the risk is low, the documentation requirements are lower. So we're going to show you how that is going to transpire. You're going to have log requirements, and you're going to have different mechanisms of tracking that, whether it's in an overlay API that you're going to be integrating into your system, or what you need to be doing. So make sure that you bring it into your system in whether it's electronic or in some other mechanism. Traceability. If you cannot be able to trace the process of AI, then you have no system control, and you need to be able to do that. Now, as part of the EEE AI protocol, we talk about the EAT test, EAT, the explainability, the traceability, and the auditability. And you need to remember that there are different reasons that we have to be able to trace the evidence or be able to audit it. So there's different things that you need to be doing. Breach response. Does everyone in the department, does everyone in your practice, does everyone in your system understand what happens if something goes wrong, what they need to do? Too often, when we've seen it, it used to be with the copy machine, where something would go wrong with the copy machine and no one would say anything and it would just sit there not working. Well, no, you have to have a mechanism that if the AI is being used and you're seeing something, hallucinations, or it's misfiring in some way, there has to be a system that it's brought to the proper person's attention immediately. And again, there's a policy that needs to be established. All of these things that I'm talking about have separate protocols and who must be notified and how it must be done and who signs what. And it's important that you understand that sometimes you're going to have to get your patients or clients involved in some of these mechanisms, and forms are going to be needed. Again, AI incident log. If there needs to be a mechanism of, if AI was used on a person's in a person's case for surgical reasons or for litigation reasons, you need to be able to log it and show every step of that AI use. And you need to remember, you are not just establishing AI governance, you are also preparing for failure. Crisis management, it's always been our job. We know that stuff breaks down or something goes wrong, but are we ready? Do we have a plan for that? How do we plan that? Now, all of what I've talked about so far is on a macro level, but we have micro level governance that has to be done within the actual workflow that you are working in. And that is because, remember, we need to prove that we as professionals made the decision, even if we relied on information from the AI. So there's a mechanism that we have to walk through the workflow and be able to show whether we have established a chain of custody, basically, as to how the professional made the decision. You're going to have pre-use requirements. And what that means is your staff ready to be able to know what to do with the AI? A lot of AI is being brought into our lives without an actual preparation for how to utilize it in our workflows, in our systems. And we need to be able to know how and when to be able to govern. And the only way we can do that is be able to know what the pre-use requirements are. Tool vetting. Now, this is part of remember, if you're in a small practice, you're that one person that's doing all of this. But if you're in a large organization and some other department wants to bring in a tool, there has to be a mechanism where they have to come through you, but also be able to show where it goes into the workflow and what we can do in order to make sure that it's properly documented. Staff training, I've been talking about this. Everyone needs to understand what AI is, the risks, the problems, and be able to recognize the risks and the problems. If your staff can't recognize it, then they're not going to be able to say, wait a minute, something's going awry here. So you need to be able to make sure that there's proper staff training. Everybody should sign a pre-use declaration. And that is basically saying even the tiniest work that's being done, there's a declaration that I understand it. Here's my what I'm going to be going through. What am I going to be doing? So again, policy on a macro level, but each department or each person has to know why they're even wanting to bring in a tool into the department. And the only way they can understand the tool is if they're educated to know what the tool is, and not just relying on the vendor. Please, we as those of us who have to worry about malpractice or answering to a higher authority, or even just responding to our clients and to our patients, you need to be able to show that everyone involved is understanding what the basic issues are and what the basic problems could be. Use time requirements. If AI is active, are we able to turn it off? Are we able to, if necessary, are we able to track it? Are we able to log it? There's going to be a lot of different facets and aspects that you have to go through in order to get the governance in place. Real-time capture. Now, this is important because as part of the logging, not only do we need to know who signed off on it, but we also need to know if there was which AI model was used, what was the exact instructions given, who was involved, and if it's about a specific client or a patient, how is that being logged into the patient's or client's file? We don't do anything in the medical field or in the legal field without logging it, especially when it's about one of our patients or clients. AI doesn't change that. AI makes you even have to work in a different way to be able to govern and be able to capture that information for each patient or each client. Output handling. Now, this is important, and a lot of people haven't taken this into consideration. We need to show that if AI makes a suggestion or a recommendation, and we, as the professional who's making a decision, that we have the ability within the system to accept it, to modify it, or to reject it. There can't be that I have to accept the conclusion and go on. It has to be that I can say, no, I don't agree. I as a professional can't agree with this outcome, and I'm going to go a different route. It is important that we are able to control our way of taking care of our patients and clients as the professional and not be dictated to by the AI. Black box problem. This is, everyone's talking about black box, black box. It's basically, if you can't see what the AI is doing, how can you be able to govern it? And a lot of times, again, vendors will come and have information for you and you're like reading it and it's Chinese. You need to be able to explain it, be able to audit it, and be able for it to be traceable. And when it's such a black box, meaning that you don't know what exactly is happening, there's a problem. So the governance leader has to know what every tool is and how it works and what they need to do to make sure it's working properly. So you have to even do testing, whether it's annually, monthly, weekly, daily, because it depends on the risk level. So if you're using a grammar checker, that's a low risk versus a high risk when it involves a patient or a client. So it changes things and you need to be ready for that. Post-use requirements. After the AI acts, there needs to be a policy, a protocol for that. And you need to be, again, part of the workflow process. So we're talking about the micro level. How are we going to document it in the case file? And how are we able to show that there was a mechanism for the professional not to go forward with the AI suggestion. I'm speeding up a little because I want to make sure we get to all of our slides today. And again, you're going to have to, if it's a high risk category, there's a lot more involved in making sure that you review, how often you review it, and how it gets documented. Your defense archive. So once you've have governance, you need to make sure that the governance system you have in place actually has documentation, and that you're able to audit it, you're able to prove what you've been doing, and that you're actually involved in the governance. And as we know, there are real world failures, and I want to make sure you understand that if there's the micro level, if a human doesn't review it, if there's no human involvement, that is a failure for us in our industries. But if it is a macro failure, that's because that means it's the entire system has stopped working and needs a policy change. So you need to look at it in both ways. We see it every day. And I mean every day. I have a Google alert for what's happening in the industry based on courts and boards and things like that. Every day I get information about a lawyer doing something that they didn't realize and actually said AI gave it to me, or that the triage didn't pick up someone's urgency of their condition, and the person sat in the waiting room. There's a lot of these failures. Again, because we know what the failures are, we have to figure out what policies to put into place to, if the red light goes on in our staff member's head, how that staff member should address that issue. And by that, I mean, if the person comes into the lobby of a hospital and the triage says, "Oh, this is not a important case," and you see the person is sweating and not doing well, you can't listen to the AI over your own professional judgment. So you need to keep that in mind, that we have to that the AI becomes a silent co-pilot when governance is absent. And what does that mean? You shouldn't be making any decisions with AI unless you've agreed as the human to proceed with that answer, or that help, or that guidance, or that summary. And that only means that you are responsible for checking, double checking, and making sure that there's a system where nothing goes out, nothing goes to an insurance company, nothing goes to the courts, nothing goes out until someone has actually, that old stamp that we used to have said human reviewed and human approved before it goes out. And it needs to be in some ways involving everyone in this system. This is one of the biggest governance failures, where people say AI is just helping us. We don't need to track it. We're not using it for final outcomes. We're not using it for patient care. If it's involved, and if you are a professional who has to answer to a higher authority or to an outside regulator, then you need to make sure that you can't just say it's just in our system. You cannot have it AI in your professional setting if it's not governed. Now remember, AI is gonna cause a lot of problems, but you are the one who has the responsibility. You're the one who's going to have to testify. You're the one who has to document everything. You're the one who has to answer to patients and clients. So in order to do that, yes, it's wonderful to bring this new shiny tool into our world, but you need to make sure that you are able to answer to everyone we need to answer to. And by now, if you haven't guessed, the solution to everything I've talked about is full spectrum AI governance, and a lot of different things that have to go into place for it to happen. Those of you who are new to our webinar, you know that I've architected the EEE AI governance protocol, which is a life cycle protocol for governance of AI for licensed professionals. It doesn't take into account just bringing in the AI. It takes into account how can you defend yourself, how can you legally have legal defensibility requirements met, how to be able to protect your patients or clients. So there's a lot that's there, and you need to realize governance involves pre-use, use, and post-use, and thus educate, empower, elevate, and it involves everything we do. And you need to, if AI is there, you need to be able to have a policy for pre-use, a policy for use, and a policy for post-use. And post-use is basically that concept of auditing and verifying and testing. So there's a lot that needs to go into that. You are the first to know about this. Press release goes out tomorrow. We are launching our Leadership Academy. Now, why? Based on all the questions and information that we have received from innovators and educators, we need to go to the highest place in an organization and make sure they're prepared to govern so that they take care of everyone else in the organization. I'm excited. This starts the second week in September, and this first cohort, I will be doing a lot of workshops and hand-holding with the leaders who will be in the Leadership Academy. And it's going to be basically not just me telling you what needs to be done, it's providing samples for everything we've talked about in this presentation. There's a lot of forms, there's a lot of scripts, there's a lot of different, whether you're a small company, large company, scaling it, whatever needs to be done, we're going to be talking about it. And what's important about this Leadership Academy is that I want to make sure you understand, govern like someone's life depends on it, because it does. As professionals, the decisions we make, the work we do, someone's life in some way, whether financially, whether it involves their health, whether it involves their well-being and not going to jail, their life depends on it. So we need to be able to govern with that in mind every step of the way using AI. Govern before you automate. If you take nothing else from today's presentation, I need you to take this away. Govern before you automate. And it's important that you understand that it's not just, oh, we're already using AI and we're fine and there's nothing happening. Well, that's now. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you won't know what AI you were using, what model you were using, who was involved. You need to be able to track all of that and be able to be ready for any kind of inquiry. Please, you need to start, even if you're not doing anything else, you need to make sure your staff is aware of the risks, that there's that concept of you work as a team in utilizing AI, and that everyone is still aware that a record needs to be kept. I have allies and I have innovation partners and sponsors, and I have to thank everyone on the screen for not only being supportive of the work I'm doing, but FinGo is the user manuals, the workflows, everything for that AI technology. I was lucky enough to be involved in mapping, creating, and in MedEd Cloud, we're teaching the future doctors how to use AI ethically, and we are integrating the ethical spine of the work I do into the future holistic education for doctors. So there's a lot of people involved in this process, and I thank them for being part of my journey. And additional innovation partners and sponsors. I have obtained different AI certifications, but Work Comp College is one of our biggest supporters, and we thank them and highly recommend their AI education. And of course, F&Go for being able to be our governance guinea pig. It's been the best work I've done, and it's the being able to tell people about document deduplication is quite interesting. So on that note, please know that next month, Labor Day is the first Monday, so we will not be having the webinar on the first Monday for September. It will be the second Monday of the month. But I thank you for being here. I thank you. I hope you've taken information at least to start your governance file and your process. Most important, please email, call, contact us, and we'd be more than happy to be involved. And if nothing else, I would recommend texting EEE, 3 E's, to 888-976-1235. And on that note, we will see you next month. Thank you, everyone.